have an attendee ID number, please enter it now, followed by the pound sign. There are currently 2 members in this conference.
All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. So if you need to grab your last couple slices of pizza and a seat. Hey, how's it going? They even brought in an extra row of seats for all of you. All right, so we're mostly seated. I'll go ahead and get started. So we've got a ton of content for tonight. So those of you who don't know me, I'm Josh Tapley. I work at Comcast. I co-lead the Tableau user group, and we've got a ton of people here tonight, which is awesome. There's a sign-in sheet near the front door. If you could, if you haven't already, just initial that, because we're trying to figure out after we, put tickets on Eventbrite, how many people really show up. So we like data here. Everybody like data? No. All right, you might want to go next door. There's an empty room across the hall. For the rest of you, we love data, so we want to understand kind of what our dropout rate is so we can make sure we have enough tickets out there and as many people as we can get into these sessions. So we're super happy, ton of content. So somebody has asked me, so from Comcast, we have some job openings. Do you want to stand up real quick, Jay, and tell us what they are?
Hi, everyone. So I work in HR analytics, and we are looking for folks to join the HR analytics team. We have at least 3 director-level positions that I'm aware of. We have an analyst/senior analyst role that I'm aware of. The director positions will be a little bit more higher-level requirements, but the analyst and senior analyst positions are, believe it or not, a little harder to recruit for. But in this case, the leader who is looking for that person just wants somebody who's wicked smart, which I think applies to most of the people in this room, so that's great. But if you're interested, you don't have to know HR for that role. For the others, it would be nice if you did, but again, we're willing to train. So if you're interested in any of those, please talk to me or grab me and get my information, and I'll be happy to send you the job description for any of those roles. All right, thank you.
To make this an open forum, anybody else want to advertise your roles? I like to keep my my HR person happy. I like getting paid a lot. All right, so we've got a ton of content. We're just going to jump right into it. I'm going to do my best to keep everybody on target, and we're recording this, so hopefully we'll have a successful recording and can share it with everyone later. If we don't have your email address, you can also leave your email address on the sign-in sheet, and we'll get you a copy. And we'll go ahead and call up BK.
Yeah, sure. Give that the enter button still moves slides. I'm okay. Thanks, Josh, and many thanks to Josh and Corey for putting this group together. I think it's the 3rd or 4th meeting since this user group restarted. Really exciting. We're happy to be part of it. I'm going to take less than 5 minutes, the price of the pizza and the beer, to give you like a quick overview of IGNX, who's since we're sponsoring tonight's session. First of all, who can tell me? Anybody have any guesses where the name Igen might have come from? A lot of data people in the room. Eigenvalues and eigenvectors, that's right. So IGNX was founded 5 years ago. I co-founded it along with Stan Pittman, who's here somewhere tonight. Stan and I are both engineers by training, so we were driving around one day saying, what should we call our new company? And we thought, oh, something that implies complexity, something that implies scalability, complex solutions, that would be great. How about something around Eigen, therefore IGNX. So we get a lot of IGENIX, IGEN, we get a lot of things, but once people kind of figure it out, or once technical people kind of learn it, they kind of understand the name. And of course now between big data and social networks, eigenvalues and eigenvectors especially are really important, right? I mean, go out and Google some of Google's own algorithms, and eigenvectors are a big part of a lot of what they're doing in social networks. So I guess what's old is new again, and it's a nice thing for us. Anyway, what do we do at IGNX? IGNX is a regional technology solutions company that delivers CRM, analytics, and application development solutions in an agile fashion. We've got about 50 folks, all here in the Delaware Valley. It's a local Philadelphia company. Primary partners, as you can see, are Salesforce and Tableau, a little bit of Microsoft. I know we don't always like Microsoft, but on the application side especially. We focus extensively on working with clients at the top of the enterprise chain and all the way down. So some of your companies in the room, Comcast, Janssen, Armstrong, Moores, all clients of ours. Also do a lot of work in the higher ed not-for-profit sector, Rutgers, Columbia, Temple, National Philanthropic Trust, and some cool clients like Philadelphia Zoo. So we work up and down the spectrum. Have a great time doing the work that we do. Stan and I started the company. The one thing we said up front was we wanted to build the kind of company that we would want to work in. The kind of company that took its employees seriously, gave its employees a lot of opportunity, was committed to client service, really focused on building a culture that's flat, non-hierarchical. So even though we're 50 people now and not 5, we think we've kept a lot of that. And when we're 250 people in 5 years and not 50, I think we'll still have kept a lot of that. So I'll add the second commercial of the night, which is we're always looking for really, really bright technologists, particularly those with data skills, particularly those with visualization skills or interest in this area. So whether it's BK or myself or Stan or any of the other Eigen people who are here tonight, if you want to come up afterwards, we'd love to talk to you about potential opportunities down the road. obviously, not to leave, you know, those of you who are at Comcast and other important clients of ours. We don't want to solicit you away, that's for sure. But if you're looking for another opportunity, we'd love to be somebody that you think about and you know in the marketplace. So with that in mind, I don't want to go too much further. I'll turn it over to BK. We'll get into the meat of what we want to show you tonight and get to the rest of the presenters.
Thank you, Joe. All right, well, thanks for joining, everyone. So my name is BK Trayon. I am the visualization practice lead here at IGNX, and I'm here to talk to you about a very exciting topic known as LOD calculations. A quick show of hands in the room, who's worked with LODs before in Tableau? Wow, okay, more than I had expected. Well, if the basics bore you, I apologize in advance. For those of you that have not used it yet, I think you'll find this presentation helpful. So what is an LOD? LOD stands for level of detail. It was introduced in Tableau version 9.0, and it allows for the calculation of data to be done at a specified level. So what do I mean by that? When you have a visualization that you design, there is a level of detail that is already specified by the viz itself. It's the viz LOD. So if we go to Tableau, we'll see this particular visualization has region and category. This is off the Sales Superstore data, and you can access that via any Tableau desktop application. So we have region and category. These have been dragged onto the row shelf. Anything in the rows or columns or the mark shelf will be considered as part of the viz LOD. There are certainly circumstances where you would want to create calculations that sort of push that out of context or bring in other values into context as well. So take sum of profit, for example. If we drag profit out onto the shelf here, you see that it is calculating and readjusting based off of region and category. You may not necessarily want that, so that's where LODs come into play. This is the syntax of an LOD, so I'll start all the way on the right here, kind of break it down piece by piece. You have an aggregate expression. This is something you're probably used to seeing if you use Tableau, sum of profit, average, min, max, etc. These are calculations that we use all the time. Now, to the left of that, you see a colon, and then there's a dimension declaration. This is the syntax required by Tableau. The dimension declaration is the critical piece of this. What are you trying to add into context or remove from context? What are you trying to specify? So that specification of that dimension is the most important piece, and that's where you have some flexibility and get some great versatility in your visualizations. Now, to the left of that, there's a keyword. There are three main keywords provided by Tableau with LOD expressions. You have the include, exclude, and fixed. Include is exactly that. You have a viz LOD. You want to add something else into context that's not already in the viz LOD. The one key component here to think about is whatever's already in the viz LOD is getting pulled in to the include as well. So it doesn't allow you to go outside of that other than what you're specifying, but you are always going to pull in items that are coming in from that visualization as well in the viz LOD. Exclude is the exact opposite. So you may have region and category in the level of detail for the viz, and you want to pull that out for whatever calculation you're doing. Exclude will allow for that. And exclude also does account for dimensions that are within the visualization. So typically when you write that expression, it's going to be specifying a dimension that already exists on the visualization that you're now removing from context. Lastly, we have the fixed calculation. This is probably the one that I believe is most widely used in dashboards that I've developed, and I'm sure ones that you have developed as well. It gives you the most amount of flexibility because it's not constrained by what's already in the viz LOD. You can do anything. You can choose whatever dimensions you'd like. You set the specificity. So going into detail on the include, again, it's a specified dimension. It pulls from the actual visualization, viz LOD. But typically when you're doing an include, you're going down in terms of granularity. You're getting a lower level of aggregation. So if you reference the chart on the side here, on the right side, you'll see a typical visualization here with the viz level of detail described by this horizontal dotted line. If you were to add an include, assuming that, let's say, this is the category and this is the region, you're now adding another level of detail to this. So what happens in Tableau? It's going to take that expression, it's going to aggregate it up. And so for each of those line items, you're going to see an aggregated sum, average, max, min, whatever you specify for that. To show this as an example, let's take a look at the average order size. So you're in the Superstore sales data. You want to see by state, what's the average size of my order? You go in, you put state on the row shelf, you have your average sales on the top on the column shelf. But one thing that you need to understand is that in most data sets that we work with, real live data sets, there is duplication of records. And the average function in Tableau is taking the sum in this case and dividing by the number of records. So if you do have any duplication across a specific order, there may be multiple categories that order is referencing, multiple products, et cetera, you may have a skew in the actual results that are coming. So one way to counteract for that is to do an include function. So I've already pre-built the function for you here. The average of the include of order ID and sum of sales. So the way I would read this is, within the context of the viz, let's actually also bring in the concept of an order ID. For a given order ID, what is the sum of sales? So now you have one record for every order ID and a sum of sales that's assigned to it. No row duplication there. And then I'm taking an average of that. Now you can see I've done the average inside here, but you can also do it on the shelf as you would typically by right-clicking on here and doing a measure and choosing whichever value you'd like. So if we drag the order size onto the shelf here, you're going to see the first line item is exactly the same. Okay, so it didn't work. But in reality, if you look at the second line item and subsequent lines, there are discrepancies, in some cases quite drastic discrepancies. So for Vermont is a great example, a difference of about $600 in average sale. And what you can see then, as I was mentioning, duplication of records, is that we have the order IDs, but then there are multiple categories or subcategories, and this could continue down the path of any one of the dimensions that you're bringing within the context of the data set. That covers include. For exclude, again, it removes that dimension out of the context of the calculation. So because that's happening, you now, again, referencing the right chart here, you're going up a level. You're going to a lower level of granularity, a higher level of aggregation. And what that does, Tableau is going to read that and duplicate that record amount or that line item amount, that calculation, across all the records that are within the view itself. So going back to our first example there of the region and category, if we wanted to know the average profit for a given region and display it to our end users on this dashboard, we'd have to use an exclude LOD. We have region and category here. So in order to do that, I've created a calculation called profit exclude category, and it does exactly that. It excludes the category and takes the sum of profit. So if I drag this out onto the filter shelf or onto the column shelf, you'll see that we have the same line item repeated 3 times, once for each of the categories. Now that may not be the best way to display it. You could do something like a reference line per pane and then just point it to the profit exclude category, the calculation that we created. So this gives you an idea. For this particular region, the central region, our average profit per order is about $39,000. And lastly, to fixed. So fixed, again, we're specifying the dimension. So unlike include and exclude, it can be at a lower level of granularity or higher aggregation, lower level of aggregation. In doing so, you have the 2 scenarios at the bottom where if you are going to a lower level, it's going to aggregate up. So it'll take the average, the min, the max, and put it against any of the line items on the visualization, or vice versa, it will repeat it. You have the flexibility to choose to display it however you'd like. That way, again, it's aggregated or duplicated. So fixed comes in really handy. You know, one example would be, I want to know how many customers I obtain, new customers within a given period, or new customers over time. So the way you would do that, I've already actually created a viz for you here, but this particular worksheet shows us our first customers, or our customers' initial transactions over the period of data that we have in here. The way I've done that essentially is by getting the customer first purchase. Customer first purchase is basically fixing this calculation on the customer name. So we're saying for a given customer, give me the minimum of the order date. You're looking at the entire data set without context of what's in the visualization or not, give me the minimum of the order date. Once I have that, I can create a formula that says, identify a new or a returning customer. Simple if statement, if the customer first purchase equals the order date, in that case they're a new customer, otherwise they're returning. So I've taken that particular calculation, added it to the filter shelf here, and selected just new. And we also have it trended by quarter and a distinct count of customer name. This is giving us our trend of customers, trend of new customers over time. Really helpful in maybe you have a marketing strategy for acquiring new customers. You want to see how that's working in your organization. This type of chart would help you see that.
So it's filtered on the new?
Yes.
Okay, all right, sounds cool.
Yep. Taking that a step further, now you want to know for that given customer or for a new customer, how long does it take before they come back and purchase another item? So the second purchase itself, how would we do that? Well, you have to create basically a calculation that will understand after the initial purchase, what is the next purchase? So I've created a calculation here called repeat purchase. This tells you if the order date is greater than the customer first purchase, give me the order date, otherwise make it null. So all of the initial purchases get eliminated and just the subsequent purchases are now here. And then we do a similar thing for the customer second purchase. We take a minimum, a fixed minimum for that customer of the repeat purchase. So now we have two dates we've isolated. One of the things I wanted to show here as well is how many quarters does it take for them to come back to you and purchase a second product. So, but in doing that, we created a calculation. It's a inherent or a native calculation in Tableau called date diff. And we're just saying subtract the first purchase from the second purchase date and give me the answer value in quarters, and this returns an integer value. So you see that plotted across the top here. We have 0 through 6 quarters, and down the left-hand side we have the year and quarter of the customer first purchase date. Very easy and visual way to see this with a heat map to say, all right, approximately 1 or 2 quarters after the first purchase is when the customer is coming back. So you purchase an online order, you get an email afterward that says 5% off of your next purchase. You can track things like that and see how well is that performing, how many customers are coming back, how long does it take for them to come and back, because those customers that you have that have already come once and purchased your product, provided that they're happy, they're likely to come back again. So this could be a great way to do that. Another concept that I wanted to touch upon is the order of operations in Tableau. If you guys were here at one of the prior Tableau user group meetings, I believe this was flashed up on the screen, but just as a refresher, all the filters that you apply in Tableau, from extract filters down to Tableau calc filters, are done in a specified order. The important point to note here with regards to LODs is that fixed, include, and exclude have different levels of precedence. So fixed happens after context filters, but before set and dimensional filters and the rest that go down. Include and exclude, however, are after dimensional filters. Those are the most common filters that we use. Any quick filters you apply, any filters you have on the dashboard, typically they're going to be a blue pill on the filter shelf. That's your dimensional filter, and then your measure filters will also be up there in green. Why I bring this up, I'm actually at a client right now wrapping up a project, and we have an interesting use case. They wanted to benchmark their data, their customer data, against a national average or a national set of data. We have customers that come to us, say, hey, we want to know in particular categories, how are we performing on a percentage basis, on an overall basis, and can we get that in a visual format? Can it be refreshed quickly? Tableau was immediately the right tool for it. And we employed some of these tactics, especially with LODs and fixed calculations especially, to make that happen. So I've created a dashboard here. You can see that we have our subcategories down the left-hand side, and I'm just doing % of total sales. If you guys know about anything about quick table calculations, you can just hover over that and do a % of total, gives you the value very quickly. Once we have that in place, we've now added a filter for region. This is a dimensional filter, and we have a calculation in here for national sales. Now, national sales itself is a fixed calculation on sales, and it is taking into context only subcategories. So sum of sales for every subcategory across the entire database, give me the sum of sales. We're bringing that onto the column shelf here, doing a % of total calculation. And now with a dual axis, we can see them side by side. In addition to that, we've added some colors, so it's very easy to see. All right, chairs, binders, accessories, etc. those are the categories in which, on a percentage basis, we are not performing in the East region as well as another region is, or as well as the national averages. But there are areas where we're doing better, book cases and phones, and this concept can be applied anywhere. It can be on a sales perspective. It can be this particular client that I'm talking about aggregates healthcare data, and they look at adverse events, and they're looking to see on a percentage basis in different categories of event types and contributing factors what their particular institution or group looks like compared to the national. And you have the ability to toggle. You can, of course, tie these to any kind of security. So if you have a security table in your database, you have individuals tagged to different regions, whether you do it on a group basis or on a row level basis. You can, of course, configure that within Tableau. There's several mechanisms out there. With regards to the filters, what you'll notice now is that if I add this filter to context, all the values are the same. Why is that happening? Because if you go back to the diagram of the order of operations, context filters are calculated first. So now they're applying themselves to the level of detail calculation. And now the context provided in terms of the data that that level of detail calculation has access to is just for the region that's specified. So in removing that from context, we have the ability to then filter for a specific region while also maintaining the national. We actually did this at a variety of different levels. The organization that I work for right now, they basically wanted to have, they have a hierarchy with up to 5 tiers. You could fall anywhere within one of those tiers. So a user could come in at the 3rd tier and want to check the 1st level tier against the 5th level tier and be able to control the aggregate. So we've played around with the filters, both dimensional and context filters, to produce the desired result. I think that pretty much wraps it up. We'll be around, Joe and I, for questions after the event. Here's our pictures in case you forget what we look like. And one last thing, I know Joe's going to hate that I do this, but let's go Eagles. Thank you.
Thanks, BK. Thanks, IgonX, for hosting tonight's event, getting us all some pizza and drinks and everything. Thank you very much. And look at the coat. That's a sweet, sweet coat. Rosa Torres is going to talk to us about her nonprofit organization, Data Imprint. If I get that right? Yeah. You just got to find the right, it's like a puzzle. You need PG? Right here. Oh, you should be able to go to Quick Start and share application or screen. That one looks like it's also. Usually it just lets you share the screen. Start with PowerPoint, please. Good. All right, so at the end we're going to open it up for question and answer, like after all this. But I'm just letting you know now so I can kill time while she's hooking up her computer. That's really the real reason. But also so you can be thinking about that really hard question you have, like exactly how fast is hyper? Do you need somebody standing around yelling hyper, hyper, hyper for it to work? Because we think that that could be a reality. We haven't tested it in production though. This wouldn't be a real meeting without technical difficulties.
display up there and to it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Make sure to for the mic.
Okay. Well, so I apologize that this took a little bit longer. My name is Rosa Torres, and I'll be sharing a little bit about what I do through data imprint. I've attended a lot of TUG events, so I'm always really excited to be seated where you are, because when I attend a Tableau event, I always learn amazing things. So I'm really excited to be standing up here and to have this opportunity to share back with you some of the things that I've learned and some of the things that I've taken to action. Okay. Over the last year, I've been working to learn how data visualization can be disruptive. I've taken, you know, this is my mission for data imprint, to understand how to change how social issues can be seen, to provide supporting data, and to visualize the problem. So this was my inspiration for launching Data Imprint, which supports visualizations of various nonprofits. Throughout my presentation, I'm going to focus on these 3 key points. Why does it matter? How are we solving the problem, and what can we do about it? I'm going to use this TUG event as a quick example on how you can figure out social impact, which is what I'm driving towards. And in this example, you know, keeping in mind with these 3 points, that you first want to start with why does this social cause matter? How are you going to solve problems? How are you going to create opportunities? And what will you do? So when I start looking at a data viz and trying to understand how do I represent impact, this is my process, and this is what I wanted to share with you today. And I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to go through this, and then I'll share some of the data vizes that I've done. So PhillyTUG, if we took a look at how they've executed from input to impact, I'll do that by sharing a quick personal story. So I have a marketing and data analytics background, and I was looking for a vehicle. I was looking for some type of platform that I can share these nonprofit stories and data. But as you know, most of the BI tools that I've worked with are very expensive, and the average nonprofit cannot afford them. So when I attended a Tableau event and discovered Tableau Public, you know, I was extremely excited, because now Tableau Public removed a barrier that I had. It gave me a vehicle, it gave me a platform so that I could visualize my data and I could share it on an external site at zero cost. So this was my inspiration for launching Data Imprint, was that I found the right vehicle to deliver this information for nonprofits, and I did that by attending a Tableau event. So I wanted to illustrate how these events, especially Philly's TUG events, have gone and executed from impact to from input to impact. And when you're looking at trying to understand what impact is for some of these nonprofits, that can be very complicated. So in this example, I try to simplify it. Of course, when this event, the group, especially Josh, is looking to understand how he's driving impact, you have to kind of look at these other areas, right? So input, people, money, venue. Those are your inputs. your activities. You do marketing. You have emails. Outputs, users get registered. Outcomes. Outcomes is having you here, networking, growing the Tableau community, collecting all of the rich data from you, registering new members. Those are all in between outputs and outcomes, right? Having you here today is an outcome because you're here, you're networking, and the community is getting stronger. But to really understand the impact, you have to look at how you're inspired, your inspiration that comes out of these events, and how you take them to solve problems and take action, right? Sort of like what I did. I attended an event, I found the solution to my problem, and I moved ahead with it. So that's the impact. And that's what I look to derive from the nonprofits that I work with, is what are all your inputs, what are your outputs? You know, a lot of nonprofits focus on outcomes, and they're looking at, you know, I had so many attendees attend an event or do this or do that, but it's difficult for them to articulate how are they really making a difference. And what we're driving for is to make a difference that you can see, right, and change that you can feel. So let me share a couple of data vizzes with you to kind of illustrate what I've done. Hopefully this will not be a technical issue. So this is, again, I'm very proud of my Tableau public profile that has allowed me to do this wonderful work for these nonprofits. I'm going to start with this data viz here. I did this in collaboration with the City of Philadelphia and an organization called STEM City Philly. Their focus is to create an ecosystem of organizations that are trying to promote STEM within the City of Philadelphia. The mayor has stated that he wants to ensure that STEM is available to all students, regardless of what zip code that they live in. I think that's a really powerful statement. So what I've done with this data viz is I've illustrated that within STEM City Philly, they have 151 organizations that offer STEM programs. There are more, but these are the ones that STEM City Philly is collaborating with. And if you look at some of these numbers, if you look at the fact that some of these organizations can have the capacity for up to 2,000 students, and we have numerous organizations, then you can see that the opportunity is there. And through this data viz, we're looking to continue to develop this, but what I've done is I've laid out the STEM programs across this map, where users can come in, find their STEM programs, and click directly to a link. So, and this is another map where I'm laying out the number of students in the City of Philadelphia that are in public schools across the city and by zip code, and I'm highlighting the various zip codes, the ones with the highest poverty, because that's the conversation that we were having is, are you reaching out to all students across all the zip codes in the City of Philadelphia? So, I'm sorry, I'm kind of blind here with my navigation, so I apologize that it's a little, I'm trying to search for things. This is another organization that I'm working with. it's called Latinas in STEM. I am a Latina, and they are looking to inspire Latinas to get into STEM. We're looking to inspire all women to raise the bar for women in STEM. This is an organization that has said, you know, we're looking at 3% of women that are Latinas that are in STEM. How do we change this disparity, right? So that's why they exist. That's their mission. I think it's pretty impressive they're a very small nonprofit. They're all volunteers, probably less than 10 people, but they're able to serve close to 3,000 students, and they have members across the nation. So I thought that was pretty impressive. And here we're capturing their professions and the different professions that they're in, science, engineering, education. This is, again, some data around their attendance. So as you can see, their event attendance here, STEM 101 is their highest attending course. So this is just really quick, some of the work that we're doing for nonprofits. I'm going to share this one because it's kind of really cool. Let me talk about it for a little bit. I'm working with a nonprofit called Children's Treatment Crisis Center in the city of Philadelphia, a very large nonprofit. And what they're doing is they're working with students who most of them have had adverse childhood experiences, and how to change and how to empower them out of their circumstances so they can be productive citizens. And they're not trapped within this mindset of how their circumstances affected them. The largest adverse childhood experience is economic disadvantage. So what I did for this data viz was start to talk about, from a neuroscience perspective, that if children understand how their brain works, and they understand that there are 100 billion neurons in their brains, and over a lifetime, you can create 100 trillion connections. And that's for everyone here in the room, right? So that you're here and you're learning, and you have the capacity to learn. And if you believe that of yourself, that your brain is malleable and that intelligence is not fixed, then the question is that if you believe that of yourself, can you believe that of others? So it's a really strong message to change the mindset. And when you have an opportunity to check this out, feel free to go to my site. But what I did here was something fun for the kids. And so I used Tableau, and I created my own, I mapped this image, and I placed a neuron in various places around the brain. I made it interactive by using pages, and then I created a GIF so it could show on the website. But you know, there isn't a lot of data in this viz. It's more a fun visualization because my audience are going to be children. I'm also partnering with the Franklin Institute, and they're looking to use something like this, where the kids can go in and learn about STEM and maybe create their own connections behind the scenes and start creating their own custom maps. So you know how you can go into Tableau and create your own data points and your own custom maps. So that's where I'm going with this. That's all I have to share. I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And thank you for listening, and sorry for how rough it went with the getting the presentation up.
And now for Mac technical difficulties. Oh, come on. David, I'll have you come up first. All right. There you go. All right, so remember, leave us your email at the end if you like. We can get you a recording, particularly for the LOD. I think everybody was squinting to try to see all the formulas that were on the screen, but I'm going to hand it over to David, and we're going to cycle through a whole bunch of students here and tell us what they learned last semester.
Hello, everybody.
Good, David. It's got to be better.
Hey, you know, Josh, wait till you see the next slide. After the very final exam was submitted, I came across this tweet from Mr. Philip Riggs, and it really resonated with me because I was looking at all the different vizzes that my classmates had been submitting, and I was feeling a little down, but after I read that, it really helped me out. So I'm going to take you on a journey from where I started in Josh's class and then where I ended up. So this was the very first viz that we created in Excel. And I think, Josh, it's okay to laugh. I mean, this is obviously really great work. I think, Josh, I called this compelling, I think is the word I used. Anyway, same data set. 1 week later, a little bit nicer. Then we had a data set with hurricanes that I did a lot of cleaning with in the back end, but I came across this accidentally. I was using the Show Me tooltip, and it just showed a hurricane, and I was like, hey, that's actually really nice. Then the next time, we had an hour to work in class on a little exercise, and I got this. It's the National Parks data from the Makeover Monday set. And I was looking at the map, and I noticed that Delaware was missing. And I was like, what? Are there no national parks in Delaware? And it turns out there are no national parks in Delaware. So if you want to go to a national park, you stay away from Delaware is where it comes down to. Then he asked us to make a little business model, and the suggestions that he gave, which were really good, and were to use like a Gantt bar for where the target is instead of side-by-side bars. And what I would also do is swap the lines and bars, but to make it even better. But I like this one, and that's what I had for that. You have my Tableau Public on that? Excellent.
It's really zoomed in.
Then this is the final project. I really wanted to do an interactive dashboard, so I found this really cool data set with the different undergraduate schools in the U.S. you could go to from 2008 from the Wall Street Journal. And I came up with this title after, you know, some good suggestions. Changed the tooltips. If you select the school out, it took me a long time to do this one. I actually went through each university's website and found their school colors. And then over here we have the different areas of study where you can, where your earning potential lies, and the growth is by the color, starting salary is the Gantt bar, and mid-career median salary is the bar length. And over here I've got a little interactivity as well, where you choose the different major that you want to study, and KPI donut changes and gives you all that information. And that's something that I forgot to do when I was choosing, oh, there we go. I don't use Macs.
I don't really either. I just have one.
So overall, I mean, I think I learned quite a lot, and I appreciate the amount of effort that Josh put into grooming us all. And this is a career change for me, so I'm a theater artist by heart, but you know, trying to use my storytelling skills in lucrative ways. So thank you. And next is Michelle.
Thank you. Hey everybody, so I'm another one of the students that goes to Temple University. I'm in the Master of Science for Business Analytics program, and as a part of that program we take a data visualization course, and that's why we were working with Joshua Tapley, and also Sean Levin was teaching a section as well, but I think most of us were in Josh's class. So I'm also studying visualization, and the thing I questioned in the beginning was, where do I start? I don't know where you guys are in your experience with Tableau. Perhaps you have worked with it a lot, or perhaps not at all, and that's why you're here. This is a great place to start. This is Cole Nussbaumer's Storytelling with Data. If I had to describe it, I would roughly say that it's a data visualization guide for business professionals. That would be an accurate description. So this is a really great place to start. This gives you a lot of good boundaries. It can be a little simple when you're going through it, but you never want to forget what is at the core. One of the main things I learned from this that really kept me centered while I was practicing is the Z pattern. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. It's the idea that as you're creating a visualization, you want to consider that the reader is going to digest the information in the pattern of a Z. So it helps you kind of have the beginning, the middle, and the end orchestrated in the right format. And this is really helpful for when you're trying to organize the information, no matter what kind of forum you work for. So one of the things that I worked on, we had a QVC data set. Now this was about halfway through the semester. This was something that had multiple parts to it. But this is sort of a snippet from the viz that I created, and it had multiple sections. In this viz, I was trying to mimic some of the QVC TV displays, also the internet displays. So I would recommend always kind of looking at what your audience is and also what you're trying to display. Now, did I do a masterful job here? I think there's things that I see that I could definitely improve upon, but I like the way that I tried to mimic these things, and I think that's always a good practice. Another project that we had, this was my final project as David discussed. This was about 6 weeks later. So if you can imagine about 12 weeks in the course, 6 weeks is what I just showed you, another 6 weeks later, and this was a bit better. It's a little more infographic style. There were a lot of interactivities included here. This is definitely a step up, and I tried to use a lot more different types of charts. The KPI donut and a mosaic plot, everything was very exciting to me. So I would say to anyone, no matter what level you're at, my greatest way to improve is to follow the many step-by-step guides that are out there. I don't know what everybody is working on, but there are so many people out there who have put their workbooks out. They've given you step-by-step instructions. I would say I learned the most from just going into these and creating the charts. You can use the Superstore data, you can use your own data, but this really makes a huge difference going through. So also attending these meetings. So there's this really cool border that I'm super proud of. You see it in the American flag pattern at the top. I learned this last meeting when Pooja, it's Pooja-tastic, thanks Josh. Pooja works for Comcast. I'm not sure if she's here tonight, but she had this really cool tip, and it's essentially two boxes that you use, one box with the color and another box you make the color of your background, and when you kind of display it on top, it creates this really awesome border. And by coming to the meeting, I learned this really cool tip that I then a day later submitted in my project, which Josh appreciated. I believe somebody else in the class did the same thing. So getting involved is also a really great way to improve. I wish you all the very best of luck. And keep in mind, if you are expanding the size of your page, if you decide to increase the layout size, it is going to increase it both at the top and bottom, so everything's going to shift. So keep that in mind if you're doing a lot of little editing, because you might find yourself ready to be finished and then you just give yourself a little more space and you're not done. So keep that in mind. Other than that, thank you so much, and everybody have a good night.
Which is why you don't wait till the night before? No. Just joking. Is it like the only class that I say, like, go find other people's work, download it, and then recreate it? All right, guys. Come on up. So it's in the folder when you're done if you need the other stuff?
Hi, like Michelle and David, I was also part of Josh's class, and this is a very cheesy reference to an old movie. Apart from being a big data nerd, I'm also a big movie nerd. So my name's Abhinav, and I'm gonna talk to you about what I learned in Josh's class and how you could, incorporate some learning in your life as well. So. The important thing is to understand that we're not learning a tool, we're learning about principles, and we're learning about how to be better storytellers with data. So a lot of it is about learning the better design principles. Why should we learn better design principles? Because it helps you get your point across much better. It carries a lot more impact. So don't focus on the tool, focus on the principle. Everybody loves better design. If you incorporate that into your quizzes, you're going to be making a lot more impact. Why is Tableau so important is because it's a very powerful tool that lets you build on this. It lets you incorporate good design elements into your quizzes. So Tableau has a very small learning curve and it's very versatile, and this is the reason why you find a lot of beginners and a lot of professionals both working on the same tool, publishing onto the same platform. So this creates a very tight community, which really helps everyone involved in the process. So we have a very diverse community with Tableau, and I mean, just look around yourself. All of you here seem to enjoy Tableau. So how you could learn is one, going back to school. That's the biggest time commitment that you could make. I chose to do that. In the end, if you're looking for a career change, you can find a lot of opportunities. The second way is online courseware. If you're looking for a structured learning environment without making the the investment in terms of going out of work, or the third way is, of course, self-learning. It's a lot more unstructured and less monetary investments, but you get to learn at your own pace. And a lot of us learn the tool by ourselves. So essentially, if you're looking to learn about the tool rather than the method, or rather about principles, then self-learning is a good way to go. So these are some great resources, not just resources, these are some great resources. Like Michelle said, Cole Nussbaum or Netflix, storytelling with data. That's kind of like the Bible for data visualization. Makeover Monday, of course, a lot of our data sets came off from Makeover Monday. A lot of us submitted to Makeover Monday. That's a great tool. You could also go to various blogs. A lot of us learned a lot from these blogs. There's Matt Chambers' Sir Viz-a-Lot, and Pooja, and I forget the second name. That's the data duo. Clint Ferridge, Andy Kriebel's WizWiz. Of course, YouTube. There are lots of great videos online to help you make your quizzes amazing. So what did I learn? I learned, first thing first, this is the Cole Nussbaum's book in a nutshell. You should know your audience. Try to formulate what the big idea of your quiz is going to be before you try to create the quiz. Pie charts and truncated bar charts are evil. There are lots of disclaimers attached to that, so in certain cases they might not be. Okay, try to always reduce clutter. The less, like the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. So try to incorporate that. Try to incorporate a lot of Gestalt principles that helps you reduce clutter. Things that like simple things like if you bunch up things together, they might seem part of itself, or simple things like that. Don't use Comic Sans or Papyrus or Bradley Hand or so many of those. So try to draw attention with design, and the most important is, of course, build a story. And of course, I learned how to do all of it together in Tableau. So here are some of my whizzes. This is quite small here, but the interactive version is up on Tableau Public. I will share a link with you at the end. You're free to go visit. So this was my final project. I took a lot of inspiration from one of Pooja Gandhi's earlier viz. So I took I took elements of the jitter plot from for the top part of the viz. And interesting story about this viz is that when I was deciding what to make for the viz, I came across Antti Lipponen's viz, which actually became a subject for the Makeover Monday in the next week. So it was kind of like a small bit of reassurance for me that I'm looking at the same kind of things that other people in the data community are looking at, and I'm able to rebuild a lot of these things that other professional people are building. So this is actually, there's a page shelf animation in the interactive version. If you run the page shelf, the stack bar charts move to show you what the level of ozone was in the city on those specific dates. This was another viz that I made. Again, the data set was provided in class. It's about where Dunkin' Donut and Starbucks, where they're located across the US, and what kind of demographics they try to serve. This is essentially another different take on, like the top part of the chart is a different take on Matt Chambers' hex map chart. So a lot of time, of course, was spent in collecting and manipulating the data. I'm guessing like 70% of the time generally goes in that. So this was important teaching me that. So these are QR codes for my Tableau Public profile and my LinkedIn profile. In case you're interested, you can scan them and go add me. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening, everyone here. My name is Sagar Manhas, and I am, again, one of Josh's students. So basically, to be very honest, I'll show you about my final project, but I'll talk a little about it. So when I was making this project, my girlfriend actually told me don't use my Wi-Fi because it was about terrorism. She's like, I just don't want to get deported. So going ahead, so I can sit open. Josh, can you open the folder? Okay, can you open the folder?
Oh, it's in the folder.
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah, image one, yeah. Matthew. How do I zoom in? Sorry. How do I zoom in? Okay, sorry. I got it. Okay. So basically, I tried to incorporate all the graphs here that we learned and which are easy for everyone to understand. So when I started with this data, I got this data from Kaggle, and I actually went to Tableau Public first to get some ideas from other people. But after going through a couple, I'm like, it's okay, I can do it myself. So initially, the top bar that you see, I usually got that thing I got from Joshua's visualization. He usually does that on the top. So I got that thing there. And then going down to the the map, where I'm shown where the attacks have actually taken place, or the terrorist attacks all over the years. So basically, this data is from is on.
Here's the slide.
Okay. Okay, so this data is from 1970 to 2017. So here's a timeline graph about all the attacks that have been taking place from 1970 to 2017. Once you go down, you can get to see a heat map. Like in 2014 and 2015, the maximum attacks have been taking place, and they increased in 2016. Going down. Okay, yeah, it's okay, fine, yeah. Come on. I'm sorry, I'm not a Mac user. That's the reason I'm having these problems. So these are various types of attacks that have taken place, the different scenarios where they usually happen, and what do they use for attacks. And I'm trying to figure it out. Okay, then I try to have a butterfly graph here. I try to relate the number of attacks with the budget, but it didn't actually go in hand to hand. Like, they didn't actually relate. Like, the more you spend on budget, it doesn't impact on the terrorist attacks. Like, if you invest in critical infrastructure, it's not helping out in stopping your attacks either ways in the long run. Okay, and the second image that I'm going to try to show you, this is a live project that I have worked on. I did this for a credit card company. Basically, I was looking for a summer internship, and I was in touch with an HR in Deserve. It's a credit card company that works out of California. So they usually have a credit card for international students. I try to relate it to different credit cards that other companies provide, that is Discover, and it was Discover, it was American Express. So I try to compare all the possibilities that they provide in their cards and what could enhance a card for a new product. So I actually had a survey run in my own campus. I got a respondents, about 200 respondents who were students. After filtering them down, I got about 100 respondents. And like as you can see, I usually targeted the international students who are in Temple University. And this is the actual outcome of it. I had actually presented this to the HR, and then he forwarded it to the CTO of Deserve, and like I'm yet waiting to hear back from them. So yeah, he said it was excellent. I don't think he actually went through it. Okay, so this was about the Temple Analytics Challenge that happens every year. Me, Abhinav, who just presented before me, and we had another colleague, Ankur. So we presented this thing. So basically we had a data of all the blockbuster movies from about 1800 to 2017, and we ran all the possible types of regressions that we could on this. We ran a logistic regression, we ran multilinear regression, time series regression. So the only reason like we got shortlisted to the top 10 and we didn't win, it could be that it was too technical. So our judges were basically CEOs, CFOs of different companies who had come in. Only the person from Comcast was from a statistical background, so he could relate to with our presentation, but the other people could not relate to it. So the outcome of this presentation was that you do not put too many technical things in your Tableau. You just have to put results in there. And that's it from my side. I would like to ask Sherry to come and take over from here. Thank you so much for your time and patience.
Right, how's everybody doing so far? Good? A little bit tired? I hope my contents can be interesting enough to keep you awake to the end. All right, I'm also not a Mac user. How can I?
In the mic,
okay.
And then you should be able to just use the arrow keys to go forward.
How can just, oh, it's displaying forward.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
So my name is Paywin, and I go by Sherry. And as you can see, I'm also a student from Josh's database course, and Josh is an awesome teacher. And first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me here tonight, because it's a great opportunity for people to learn something about Tableau, also share your thoughts in Tableau. Also, there's some great potential job opportunity over there that I'm definitely interested in. All right, so what I'm going to share today is what helps me most while I'm designing my own data viz. First of all, I want to talk about a little bit about me. So I'm currently a graduate student in Business Analytics program at Temple, and I've been using Tableau for 5 months. And my final project won the Viz of the day, and this is how it looks like. So basically, I'm talking about video game console wall by comparing data sets among PlayStation, Xbox, and Wii. I'm not really going to focus on content today, so don't worry about it now because I will break it down into more detailed information about some like my ideas of how I start my whole designing. Also, if you went to my Tableau public account, you will see more of my other data work. Currently, I'm really focusing on creating something like interactive infographics that really aims to business and user. It's easy to read and eye-catchy. I guess that's my goal currently. So back to the topic, there's one beneficial tool that was introduced by Josh. I use it, I love it, and now I'm applying it in every single of my Tableau work. And this tool is called PowerPoint. And I hope most of you have already applied it in your Tableau work. That's great. If not, I hope I'm going to convince you why I like it, why PowerPoint is so powerful. Because of all of these reasons, and I'll go through them one by one. So first of all, I want to talk about how to make PowerPoint to make customized background, and I'm using this coffee dashboard I created. So again, it's a class project. We're comparing Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks. So when I first got the data, immediately I want to create a splitted background so there's a strong contrast so people know I'm comparing two things. But at that point, I have no clue how to do it in Tableau. So what I did is I opened my PowerPoint, dragged two rectangles upside one down, gave a lighter color and darker color, put them together, save as a picture, and then you can drag it into Tableau as a background image. And I did all of those in less than 5 minutes, but it really gives you, like, make your whole dashboard stand out a little bit. Another example, I'm using Sean Levin's his dashboard he published on Tableau Public, and I downloaded his workbook and I copied what he made. So he's also doing a customized background, and I can show you what I did in PowerPoint. So you just get the right shape with right color, drag them to the right position. It's a little bit more complex than the previous one, but still, if you don't limit your imagination, you can get some really nice background there. Yeah, that's about customized background. And next one, I'm going to talk about customized icon, and I believe most of you have already applied that in your Tableau work. So you can change the color of your icon to make it more consistent with your whole dashboard color. Also, you can remove background because sometimes when you're downloading those images from like Google Image, they have background you don't really like. You want to remove it, that's what you can do. Another feature I really like about PowerPoint is it has eyedropper, so you can get the color from the image and assign it to text contents. That also use a lot in my data viz work. Next, I want to talk about customized annotations. So I'm using my video game dashboard as an example. So there's two parts in this dashboard. I used customized annotation. One is here that I'm asking my audience, are you familiar with the most popular game on each platform? And what I want to do is I want people to know, hey, it's the interactive part. I want people play with it. They can take a guess first, and then they can scroll the bar to the right, and it'll show you what's the game image. So I really want to make this part stand out. So what I do is I rotate the annotation a little bit. I don't think you can rotate text box in Tableau. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I did it in PowerPoint. It's just easy. You just create a text box, rotate it, and save it as a picture. Another part is here at the bottom of the chart, I create this thing explaining top 100 games based on global sales. As you can see, there's dots going everywhere, so I try to add some annotation there to help people better understand what I'm talking about. So there's another part that I use customized annotation. Last one, I want to talk about how you use PowerPoint to create customized map, and I'm not using my own example, but I saw this girl, Nina, she create this work for Makeover Monday Week 4, and what really impressed me is she made a map with a globe, and I was wondering how she did it, so I downloaded her workbook again, and what she did is quite easy. So she, first of all, she creates a map in Tableau, and then she creates a square with a transparent circle in the middle, and then just simply place one on the other, and you have a cool looking globe-like map. So it's really not that hard to make a square and a circle in PowerPoint. So I think it's really a cool technique. Again, I'm not saying that you need to spend a lot of time in PowerPoint. You should still focus on Tableau. But what I'm thinking here is, as long as you don't limit your imagination, you spend a little more time in PowerPoint, it can be a really supportive tool for your Tableau work. So that's what I'm trying to share today. Thank you for your attention.
So amazing group. I know we had a lot of Temple students, but a couple months ago we were at St. Joe's, so it seemed only fair to give them a shot. Yeah. All right, we'll go back. We've got other schools around here too, so if you're interested or you have other, if you're a student or friends that you want to present, then certainly let us know. But 5 months in with Tableau, now this data viz course is like an intro course that everybody has to take in this Business Analytics Master's Program. 5 months in, a couple hours a week, and a visit a day. It's pretty impressive. But impressive work all around, right? Big round of applause for them. Corey, this was like your time to go ahead and get set up. I was going to try not to be so obvious about it, but no. We're going to go ahead and turn it over to Corey now, who will have his own technical difficulties.
Yeah, sure. No, I don't have a math question to do. How's everyone doing? Good. I'll just use this time to ask my favorite question, so it won't be a surprise to the repeat people. So I guess to start with a show of hands, how many people, this is your first meeting? Very nice. So then show of hands, you're a repeat? Awesome. And then, oh, hold on, keep your hands up if you're a repeat. So my question for the new people is every meeting I like to ask, if you have published a dashboard to Tableau Public since our last meeting, can you keep your hand up? Awesome. That's pretty good. That's our best yet. So that's my challenge. That's how I always like to start. By saying, if you haven't already, highly recommend creating a Tableau Public profile. There's so much you've seen today that people have learned and got just different experience and different exposure from using Tableau. So Tableau Public's a great way to kind of treat it as your sandbox or your playground. And I am now going to go through some tips and tricks that I've picked up using Tableau Public and just playing around with Tableau. So my talk's going to be kind of two parts. The beginning is going to be focused on tips and tricks, and then I'm also going to show a recent visit of the day that I had that's a little more advanced on the Tableau side of things. But all the tips and tricks here, my kind of goal is to show how you, when you start thinking a little bit outside of the box of Tableau, you can kind of do more than what just is available in the Show Me pane or things like that. So how you can use the built-in features of Tableau to really kind of push that user interface and some of that user experience with your dashboard. So I'm going to run through 4 different examples right now. So the first thing that I'm going to show is using a reference line. I'm guessing a lot of people have used reference lines before. Is that a fair assumption? Cool. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a scatter plot real quick. So I've got profit and I've got sales, and then I'm going to bring in, I think I want to bring in customer to show that. And basically what we have here, maybe I need to make it bigger so you can see it better, yeah. Is that this scatter plot by default is showing you basically the range. But one of the things that sometimes we run into is that we want to actually show kind of the distribution a little better, and maybe this is getting skewed because, for example, here, the axis is going up to 8,000, and on the negative side, it's only going to 6,000, right? So there's actually 2,000 more that's not being shown. So it's making it feel a little more balanced than it actually is. So one way that you can kind of counteract that is using a hidden reference line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a calculated field that I'm going to call reference line for profit, and I'm going to use a if statement to create some logic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if the absolute value of the window min, so the window min function takes the lowest value that is in the view right now, and then I'm going to say the sum of profit. So if the smallest value is greater than the window max of sum of profit, so that's basically saying my smallest number is negative, my smallest mark is a negative number, then I want to take the absolute, the negative, hold on. I want to just take the absolute value of that. So I want to take the absolute value, window min of sum of profit. So basically, if my smallest number is negative, I want to take the positive of that big, the number. Else, if it's negative, I want to take the negative window max. So I want to take the negative sum of profit. And that's it. So basically what this is doing is it's saying if it's the smallest number is a negative number, I want to take that exact number but make it positive. If the biggest number is a positive number, I want to take that number but make it negative. So then what I do, what do I have? What did I miss? Expecting a closing parenthesis somewhere, probably right here. So that's now valid, and I'm going to take this reference line, I'm going to put it into my view, and I'm going to say look at it using the customer name. So now what I can do is I can bring this reference line in, the reference line here. When I say, okay, I don't want to show the value, it puts a reference line here at that 8 million. So what that's doing now is it's creating this balance. And then all I can do is I can right-click on it, and I can format it, and I can show no line. But now my 0 is going to be right in the middle, so you can start to see some of the skew that's actually to the right that you were missing before because the value was truncated. Same thing. And this is dynamic. So if I come here and I chop off all of these upper values, right? So now I'm below 5,000 when I exclude it. The reference line jumps over here now, and it's actually, again, keeping that number in the middle. So it's keeping your symmetry there. So using a calculated field, you can make it dynamic, and by saying, looking at the window min and the window max, you figure out where that belongs, and it keeps it lined up. So that's one tip that I like to use that I've picked up along the way. Again, not doing anything that Tableau can't do natively, but just trying to figure out creative ways to use what's available to us. The second one, and this might be my favorite tip, so maybe I should have saved it to the end, but that's all right. We're going to do a kind of more advanced drill down. So we're going to start with something basic using dashboard actions and then try to take it to another level. So simply all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the sum of sales. By category, I'm going to sort it descending. Right up here, you've got your sort. And then I'm going to come here, I'm going to do it again, but instead this time I'm going to do it at the subcategory level. Whoops. Put that up there. And then WebEx go away. we're going to do it descending. So now we've got two sheets. We got our category and our subcategory, and we're going to be able to drill in to the subcategory from the category. The other option, because it is a hierarchy, and I'll just show, is you can always just plus into it, and that's if you have a hierarchy set out. You can plus and minus. You can do it on the dashboard itself as well, plus and minus. But it adds width to your dashboard, right? So maybe there's another way that you want to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dashboard here. I'm going to put a vertical container in it, and I'm going to put both of my items in the container. And then the important thing here to do is to make them fit the entire view, because it'll help with automatic sizing. And then I want to hide this title on the second one, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, I'm going to create an action, a filter action based on the category. And when I select it, I want to filter the subcategory. And when I clear the selection here, you've got three options. Do you want to leave the filter? Do you want to show all the values, bring it back to the original, or do you want to exclude everything? So we're going to exclude everything. And basically what that does is now when I click here, I see just the technology things, and when I clear it here, I'm left with just the original. One of the other things that you can do, this is a bonus tip, I wasn't planning on doing this, but just now, you can drop a blank field into your container as well, and that'll help with some of the sizing because the blank field will take up space. When you drill into it, as long as this is above your blank field, it'll still look good. Again, it's kind of helping with the spacing of the bar, but then when you plus it back up, the blank space takes up the additional space instead of your view taking up the additional space. Again, without it, it looks like this. So maybe you want the blank space taken up more. So back to the original tip. So now the original tip, and the problem kind of with this drill down here is maybe I want to get rid of this context and I want to make it really feel like a drill down. So first let's take a look at how you can do that and what you can actually do. And this I first saw was Curtis Harris posted a blog post on this through his blog, and I saw it through Twitter and Tableau Public, is you can come in here and you can create a filter self on category or something, whatever you want to call it. It's helpful to name your actions because once you start to get a lot of actions on the dashboard, it's hard to keep them straight. But we're going to, again, say we want to run a select filter on categories, but instead of filtering subcategories, we're actually going to come in here and we're going to tell it to filter the sheet itself. Clearing the selection, this time we want to show all the values. And the one important caveat here is you actually define what the filter is running on. So we want it to run based on category selection. So again, category worksheet selecting to filter itself, clearing it will show all values, and running it on category. So now what will happen when I click on one is it actually filters that category just for the one so that the other context goes away. And then by clearing it, we get back to the original view. So you're starting to get this drill down pop-up type of feel. Now the last problem that we have is our axes, right? So our axis here goes up to 600K, but because these are smaller range, our axes aren't synced. And this was something I think that Tableau said in 10.5 or in future. Weren't they talking about in Vegas about ability to sync different axes? Maybe, I don't know, maybe I made that up, I don't know, we'll see. If you're listening, Tableau, you should do that. But for the meantime, until they do that, what we can do is, again, use our hidden reference lines. So we can come here, we can add a reference line based on the total sales for that category. Again, it's popping out a reference line, so you can see we're right around that 600K. I keep forgetting that right in here I can get rid of my line. Say okay to that, and now when I come back to my dashboard, these axes are lined up because there's a reference line out here where this bar ends that you wouldn't really know, and then same thing, if we come to a different bar, we again have that reference line out there to line that up. And then it all comes down to formatting, what axes you need, what you don't need. Question?
Yeah, so is this when you're working solely with the filter itself?
The two, so there's two, yep. So the one is filtering. Yeah, absolutely. So the first one that we put on was this original filter that filters the second dashboard with the exclude all, and that's what makes the second worksheet show and hide. And then the second one is the filter self, which is making the dashboard drop down to one bar, and then when you clear it, it shows all values. Yep, exactly. I don't believe so, because I'm pretty sure that the order is actually just based on, right now, alphabetically, and then you can actually change it here based on, like, different things. So you could just change it. So. Yeah, I haven't run into an issue, and I haven't done it premeditated one before the other, so I think you'd be okay. So, any other questions? Keep moving. Cool, we'll keep moving. So a lot of times you see text tables like this, and sometimes I find it actually very helpful to have a small summary table on your dashboard, but it's often it turns into a sea of numbers and it's hard to glean those insights, right? So there's certain things that you can do to kind of help make the numbers pop out, coloring things, doing different sizes. But one of the things that I think is neat is using Unicode shapes, specifically like a dot, as an indicator. So we're gonna use a dot indicator here, and we're basically gonna create a calculated field, profit less than 0, we'll say. Again, not getting too creative with my names here, but basically we want to say, before I start this, I cheated and I put a couple of my Unicode shapes in here that I'm going to use. So if you don't know, this is the tip. You can use Unicode characters in anywhere that you can put text. So we're going to take an example here, and we're going to say if sum of profit is less than 0, can type, then we're going to put that shape, and else we're just going to leave it empty, and that's it. So now we have a statement here. So you can copy it from online. So you can, there's a website with a list of different characters. So I just copy it off of there and paste it in. Good question, thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this into my table, and what you notice happens is because it is in front of my subcategory, all the ones that have positive profit are coming to the top, and all the ones with negative profit here are coming to the bottom with this breaking it out. And that's not really what I wanted to do. So the way to get around this is I can come to my subcategory here and I can actually duplicate it. And before I show you why, I'll show you why I have to duplicate it. Because if I bring this to the front here, this is more of what I want, where the Unicode starts to break out. However, if I hide the header here, because it's the same exact pill, it hides it in both places. But by bringing the subcategory copy here, there are now two different pills, and what I can do is I can hide the first one, and basically slide this over, and now I have a little indicator. Because this is a dimension and it's a text field, I can come here and independently color it, and since I only flag the ones that are a concern of me, I can make those red, and now I have on my text table little dot indicators for any profit that is less than 0. So again, just a simple way to kind of bring very small pieces of visualization to a more standard text table. The last tip I'm going to give is, again, along this idea of using Unicode shapes. So like I said, you can use any Unicode shapes just about anywhere that you can use text. So one of the things here is this is just, again, a very standard table, and it just has the sales by segment and by month. I'm going to flip this so hopefully it fits a little better. Actually, it might be a little confusing. We'll leave it that way. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a calculation. And for those who don't know, you can write calculations quickly in the shelf if you're just doing an ad hoc calculation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the lookup function, and I'm going to say sum of sales, and I'm going to say -1. So basically what that's doing, you can see, is that it's pulling the sales from the previous month. So in February, the -1 is giving me January sales. In March, I'm getting February sales, and et cetera. So that's doing what I want. I'm going to double click in here and just copy this thing, and I'm going to use it in a calculated field. So I want to create a calculation that's called the difference of sales. And I'm going to say the sum of sales for the current month minus the lookup sum of sales, and that's going to give me the change of sales, basically. So now I'm going to create 2 more calculated fields, and really, I guess I should say what the goal here is. So the goal is in the tooltips, I'm going to have the difference in the sales from month to month, but instead of just showing a positive or a negative, I want to show a Unicode arrow either going up or going down, just to add a little bit more flair and a little more style to the dashboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to call increase of sales, and I'm going to say if. And again, I forgot, so I'm going to go in here, my shortcut. I'm going to copy the increase. So these are the 2 arrows I'm going to use. I'm going to show a positive for an increase and a negative for a decrease. And you know what? Before we even do that, let's do one more bonus tip. I'm going to take this lookup of sales, and I'm going to drag it right on top, and that shows you, I might already have this formatted. Oh, that's because it's looking up, and what I wanted to show you was the difference in sales. All right, so this is showing you the difference in sales between the previous month, right? And what I want to show you that you can do first is, if you're not worried too much about color, is you can actually come into here, and I can come into my number format, and this is the default number format, and it has a negative value, but maybe instead of a positive and negative value, I actually want to show those Unicode arrows. So you can come in here and you can just paste a Unicode value into a format, and it by default is going to bring in the positive. Same thing, I have to go grab that -1. But if I come in here, grab the negative, and come into my format one more time, I'm going to get rid of the minus sign, and I'm going to put the down arrow, right? So then, just by default, like I said, anywhere that you can use text or so in a title in your format, in the tooltip, which is what we're going to show, you can include the Unicode shapes. So I am going to undo. So I think we're back to where we started. We go back to this worksheet. So now we're back to sales, and we've got the lookup, and we got the change of different sales. So I'm going to create a calculated field called decrease in sales, and I'm going to say if the difference of sales is less than 0, then we're going to take this guy, and then we're going to say end. So if it's not, it's going to be null. Nothing will show up there, no spaces, no anything. Then basically what we're going to do is grab the positive guy, come to the increase, and finish this one. So we're going to say if the difference in sales is greater than 0, then show this. And okay, so now we have 2 different ones. If it's an increase, it's showing an up arrow. If it's a decrease, it's showing nothing. For the first calculated field, if it's a decrease, it's showing a down arrow. If it's an increase, it's showing nothing. So we're going to use these 2 fields together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the increase of sales, and I'm going to take the decrease of sales, and I'm going to take them both to my tooltip. And what that does is it puts both of these sales right next to each other. I'm also going to bring in the change in sales right here, difference. Cool. So now I have difference of sales, increase of sales, and decrease. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stack these guys right next to each other. And then I'm going to put them in front of difference of sales. And then any decrease of sales is bad, so I want to show it as red. Any increase of sales, you could do orange as well. I'm going to do is blue, not doing red and green because they say about 10% of males are red-green colorblind, so we try to stay away from red-green whenever possible. So blue is going to be good in this scenario, and orange or red will be bad. And then we'll have our sales amount. And then basically, if we think about what the formula says for these 2 ones, is if this number is positive, we're going to see a blue arrow, but we're going to see nothing here. It's null. And if this is negative, we're going to see a red down arrow, and we're going to see nothing here because it's null. So let's see if that works. So this is the absolute sales amount. For January, we have no change in sales, so we don't see anything. But here we go. We see a negative there, negative, negative. So there's the positive, right? So we can start to see, the last thing I'd probably want to do is I want to come into this difference of sales. And like I talked about before, we can edit it. I want to get rid of that minus sign here. like that. So now when it's negative, it's just down, but then we can see the down and the up like that. And again, this can be used in titles. You can do it if you have like bands, big numbers, and you have smaller variances down below your bands or something like that. But again, it's dynamic. It's not like you have to manually go in and change the colors when something changes from positive to negative. But it does add a little flair, and it helps draw your eyes immediately to know if this means it's good or if it means it's bad. So that is my fourth and final tip. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about my recent visit of the day, the green eggs and ham dashboard that I built. But any questions? One question here?
Yeah, the last formula, I haven't thought this through. The answer might be obvious. Could you have achieved the same effect with the Unicode characters in a single formula that says if positive, then the up arrow, else if?
Yeah, so good question. So that, the latter, which you explained, is basically the same idea as putting it into the format itself. The problem with that is by only having one field, you can't color it blue and color it red, which is why you do it in two fields. Good question. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to jump over. We'll take a look real quick. I guess I should start with, well, we'll just go right to the dashboard. This is very zoomed in. Okay, let's try my Tableau public page. I'm going to try my public profile and see if that works. So basically, for the background of this dashboard, if you're wondering why is he spending his time making dashboards on green eggs and ham, I was reading the book. I went to the Big Book of Dashboards lecture, and they were talking a little bit about Steal Like an Artist, which is a book about how people find inspiration. And I was reading this book, and I found in here a line that's in the book. I'm just going to zoom this way out. It'll get small. I found a line in the book that said Dr. Seuss wrote The Cat in the Hat in like 200 words, and then his publisher came back and challenged him to write a book using less than 200 unique words, so he wrote Green Eggs and Ham using only 50 words. So I was like, that's interesting. I want to visualize that. And I don't think that's what people meant by reading this book will give you inspiration. I don't think they meant it would be that literal of inspiration. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to look at the relationship of the words and how he used those words, what words he would use most commonly, and what were like some repeating patterns and themes. And I also was just looking for an excuse to use a network diagram. So I tried unsuccessfully, probably like 3 or 4 times beforehand. And I think that's actually an important learning, right? Like every chart isn't the best chart for that data. So you're going to start, you might have some preconceived notion of what you want to do with the data. You visualize it, and it's like, well, that looks like crap. Like, that's probably not the best way to present this data. So I kept going, and I had the network diagram in the back of my mind, and I think it worked pretty well here, so you can start to see some of the repetition of words like Sam I am and I do not like them, and how they kind of repeat over and over again. And basically, it works around clockwise. At 12 o'clock is the most popular word, and as it goes along the clock, it goes from most to least popular words. So a couple of different things that I'll talk about, because I think some of the neat things about this is it does show animation, which is something that Tableau currently does not allow on Tableau server. It's only for desktop for whatever reason. I think animation, as we saw in the Iron Viz at Tableau conference, if you saw, can bring a lot of value and be powerful in telling stories with data. But some of the people, and Roddy Zakovich in particular deserves a shout out, came up with really clever ways to be able to embed animation into a dashboard using a GIF. So basically right now this is animated, but it's not interactive, which could be seen as a downside to the dashboard. But with this toggle here, you can actually come here and it'll stop what appears to stop the animation, and then it makes the dashboard completely interactive, so you can go around and see the different words and look at the different word patterns and things like that. So I'll spend a minute showing how that was done, as well as just talking about the network in general. I, by no means, am a math wizard. There's much smarter people than me in the Tableau public community, definitely standing on the shoulders of giants, and won't try to explain all of the math that goes behind a network. What I would recommend is going, there's very detailed blog posts that outline the calculations. But when you think about it at the highest level, you basically are creating coordinates in Tableau. You can create them dynamically. Tableau's got a lot of trig functions in there like cosine and sine. So basically, you've got a circle with a 360-degree angle. In this case, there's 50 words, so you're dividing that angle into 50 slices, and then you're taking the basically the rank of each word. So the first equation for that first dot would be the 360-degree angle divided by 50 times 1 because it's the first position. Let me see, I think I had somewhere. Yeah, here. I don't know if this will help. I was trying to make it make sense today as I was coming to talk about it. But basically, you've got the number of words in here is 360 degrees. That creates an angle. And then from that angle, you basically have to move that angle each time for each additional word, right? But if you do that, it's going to start down here. And instead of that, you want it to start at a 90-degree angle, so you have to move it back up. But then basically, once you get your angle in the right spot, you have cosine and sine. And then if your origin's at 0, which it is, the cosine of your angle and your sine of your angle is going to give you an x and a y coordinate, and it'll equally plot it around. So I can just show you here. This is with 50 words. If I had 20 words, you would see that the spacing automatically updates. If I have 10 words, the spacing automatically updates. If I had 100 words, it would only make half a circle. So basically, again, trying to keep things as dynamic as possible using a formula like this. And like I said, it is available on different blog posts. You can create some pretty neat network diagrams. And I don't want to spend much more time. If you have questions specifically, we can talk about it offline. But what I do want to show is kind of how the animation works. And then wrap up so I don't go over. But basically what happens here is this frame here is a GIF. And it's, again, sorry, it's so zoomed in. And I don't think I can zoom it out. But what happens is next to the GIF, there's actually a tiny worksheet called My Network, and it's hidden right now. And together, they're sitting in a container, and this container actually runs off of my dashboard, which you can't see. But the container actually runs off to the right into the margin, so it gets chopped off. And then basically what happens is when you switch this, the interactive version has now popped out in its full size, and the GIF is getting pushed off the dashboard out of the Zoom so that you can no longer see. And if I was able to, let me see about this. So again, it's perfectly cut off, so I can't show you, but I promise you right here to the right, if you download it, you'll see it, the GIF is still running on the side, and that's really an implementation of Robert Rouse's slide-out container. So I think that his pop-out menu has been adapted to pretty cool use cases, this being one of them, which was first done by Roddy, as well as I think recently we've seen some examples of how you can do slide-out containers to actually put in animated like instructions for a user or a user guide to how to interact with your dashboard. You can have your instructions pop in and pop out and different things like that. But again, this is a little more complicated. It's something that if you download it and have questions, please feel free to reach out. Don't want to go overly technical today, but hopefully serves as a little inspiration that just about anything's possible if you can figure out the logic and the math behind it in Tableau, which is always very exciting. So thank everyone for the time. Please let me know if you have questions.
Yeah, fantastic, great job. For the connecting line, are you using like a sigmoid curve? Or?
Yeah, good question. So again, much easier if you read through the whole blog post, but it's actually a second data source which pads the data. So you create a fake calculation. Basically, you just join it on one-to-one, so it creates duplicative rows for every line of the padding data. and then there's a calculation that creates something very similar to the sigmoid curve to do that. So yeah.
Determines how long, I guess, that curve is.
Yeah, based on.
That's Sam and Am right next to each other on the circumference, so it could have just gone basically.
Yeah, I think it's always going to a midpoint and then coming back down. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
All right, so we have a few more minutes. Any questions people have about Tableau or anything DataViz related? I'm going to make Corey stand up here so we can answer them.
Corey, were you also going to mention how PhillyTUG is promoted to be a Visitor Day? Is that part of it?
So we're going to repeat questions just so it gets recorded too. So how did you promote this to be a Visit of the Day? Viral marketing?
Yeah, I mean, so I think sharing your work's the most important thing for it to get noticed. So I post all my dashboards on Twitter. Sometimes I'll post it on LinkedIn. Sometimes, I mean, I never really set out like thinking, oh, this is going to be a visit of the day. If that is like your goal, I think timing kind of helps. So like if I was trying to be like even more creative about it, maybe I would have waited and posted this on like Dr. Seuss's birthday because they like to highlight things, or like after the Super Bowl or something like that. Dashboards get highlighted that are relevant, but also I think just things that feature new features in the product or are just elegant, and a lot of times you see things that are very simple and clean and that are just good influences for the mass people. So I don't think there's any specific recipe. The only thing that I could see is the idea of timing. Yes, good one. Yeah, so if you're sharing it on Twitter, tag Tableau Public or something like that. Thanks, Sean. One more.
I've never seen as many scrolling dashboards as we saw tonight. Can you talk a little pluses and minuses of dashboards with multiple tabs?
I'll start, and then if Justin wants to go. So the question was around scrolling dashboards or long-form dashboards, and it's pluses and minuses of it, or having multiple tabs. I really think it depends on a use case. So we've seen the long dashboard really come into play with the infographic poster style thing. In my experience in the business world, we're trying to limit the size of the dashboard so that it can either fit on a laptop screen or it can be printed as a one-pager, so that executives can get everything in one glance. For a lot of like we saw with Rosa's, the idea of having a poster that a nonprofit can hang up is very applicable. So to me, it comes down to your use case, who's your audience, and what that message you're trying to convey. I think the pros of it is that people are used to interacting with infographics in that poster type form. The cons of it are all that it doesn't fit onto one page or one screen, so that it requires people to scan.
So I think I would agree. In the business world, we're really focusing everything on pretty much letter landscape. We're formatting it to be printable because we still know that happens a lot. So one thing that we find that people forget is that when you PDF a dashboard, you still need to go into page setup of your dashboard options and set that thing to be landscape. Otherwise, it will print to printer default, which is almost always portraits. You end up with a really tiny dashboard on a really large piece of paper. We're also designing more stuff for mobile, but people tend to be consuming letter landscape dashboards on an iPad, not a phone. So I think part of the reason why the long-form dashboard is becoming so popular is because as people consume more stuff on their phones, they're usually consuming it as an image. And we kind of get back to UI best practices where, and we're noticing a change in preference. So before it used to be that you'd click through dashboards and you'd have a whole bunch of tabs. Do people here have dashboards with a whole bunch of tabs? Anybody? Yeah? So you should go out to Tableau Server and audit your dashboard and see how many people click past tab 1, because I'll tell you it is a really, really depressing stat. So we take this and we start to think about, okay, well, if people don't consume multiple pages, and particularly I think in the Tableau public world, there's a lot more sharing your information with other people and having them consume it, like in their free time. Hey, you built this really cool dashboard about green eggs and ham. I saw it on Twitter. I probably saw it on Twitter while I was sitting on the SEPTA. Let me click through and look at it. There's still a lot of room to go in Tableau world, I think, to be more mobile friendly. So we usually share it as images, and then if it's a long-form dashboard, you can just scroll with your thumb while you're on your phone, and that's why I think they're so popular. And then the printout. For our Temple students, what I think we found that was a huge influencer is that they had this analytics challenge. It was about halfway through the class. And people from throughout the whole school submitted for this. And when we look at the last couple of years of winners, almost every dashboard that placed was a long-form dashboard. And it's because when I look at the panel who judges this, there's designers, and it's not just analyst people, and it feels like everybody kind of like to that level is placing with a long-form dashboard. So it almost feels like you need to do that too to compete. It'd be interesting to hear how the Temple students, if they felt influenced by that, but certainly knowing your audience and trying to aim towards your audience can be a lot of it. But it's popular right now. It's trendy.
From your use case in Comcast, do you tend to use more the artistic infographic design, or do you mostly have like a template using company logo colors with a white background?
Sure, I can give you the Temple, and then he can give you the Johnson & Johnson play. So for us, I think there's we have over 250 different departments using Tableau at Comcast. So I think every department kind of has their own look and feel. So we stick to some template piece of it, but I've hired some really talented designers, so I can't just tell them to follow the template, or they would stop working for me very quickly, I think. So I try to, it's more like a general guide. It's like the Pirates Code. It's a general guideline, and we try to make things interesting, but really it's more of a change management effort to go from here's like your legacy BI dashboard to infographics. And infographics don't work in most, I think, business situations. It's somewhere in between. So you're kind of like trying to make the legacy dashboard amazing, but it doesn't usually ever look like an infographic.
I agree. I'm in finance FP&A, so everything that we're starting with is Cognos reports and very typical Excel reports, P&Ls, balance sheets. So it's taking those baby steps, using things like dot indicators to start moving people towards very small data visualization, and then building out very simple bar charts, line charts, and trying to make the UI as smooth as possible, doing the drill downs and things like that I talked about today, to help drive adoption to more interactive dashboards, but definitely more one page, less infographic style.
Build on a couple of the points that they brought up. Keep in mind the comment that Josh made about printing. Like, printing is so important because when you talk about executives who are presented with literally hundreds of pieces of information in different dashboards, if they have to interact with that dashboard, they have to think about, okay, so Jay made this and he did it this way versus Josh made it this way, and the interaction mechanisms, as simple as you think they are for you, they have to remember how to do that. Paper, I have to know how to flip, right? So printing, keeping in mind printing is so important. And to your point about FP&A, we are a very financially driven company. Everything is the crosstab. People love the crosstab. And it's because you can compress a ton of information in a crosstab. Whereas with a dashboard, you may need to have 2 or 3 pages to get the same type of information. It may show more depth, but at the end of the day, a lot of people just want to see the numbers, and a crosstab is really good for that. So small steps, really important.
Any other questions? So remember, we're a community here. We packed a lot of content in tonight, and we pretty much stayed on time, which was amazing. But feel free to catch us afterwards. We'd love to have more people talk about whatever you're doing in your own businesses or anything that you're doing for fun. We're also looking for sponsors and other places to host it, although we do love the Science Center, and it has great facilities and recording. So again, thank you everyone for coming. Certainly hang out, meet other folks. There's lots and lots of businesses here from Philly, and we're so excited to have the user group so alive, and an amazing turnout for tonight. Thank you, everyone.